And a good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome on into lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I am Joe Roderick, joined alongside by the returning Mike Claiborne. Claibs, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. A lot of things going on. I keep saying this is my time of the year, but it really is now with football at a height that we were hoping to get to. Some highs and lows on that front. The NHL is underway. You got the NBA cooking and basketball's going on the college front. So there's a lot going on. I'm anxious, looking forward to talking about it. Along with the Hall of Fame ballot came out today.
I saw that. I just saw that come across earlier. I believe we went over this last around the time of the actual Hall of Fame inductions last year, and kind of looked at it and kind of went over some of the names that were announced in that. But I mean, Ichiro, 100% vote getter, right? I mean, is there?
He better be.
I was gonna say, like, what for these people that will not vote for? Like, what reason do you give that you don't vote for Ichiro?
No, he should be 100%. So I have four.
Okay.
That are my four. Now you can. How many can you take in? 5, 6?
How many can you vote for? I thought you could vote for 10.
Okay. So here are 4 locks for me only. Ichiro, obviously, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, and Billy Wagner. Now you can give me a good debate. I'll tell you a guy who I'd also throw in there. And it'll be interesting to see if people pay attention to it. Omar Vizquel.
Omar is one that you kind of look at and you look at the
better numbers than Ozzy.
Yeah,
better
the
numbers
defensive
than Ozzy.
stuff that he did in his career.
More hits than Ozzy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about so the one that I throw out there, CC Sabathia.
200 game winner.
About that, yeah.
No, is he over 200 games?
Oh, I would think so.
Well, let's check on it.
Okay.
Let's not
CC Sabathia. No, Claibs, he's got 251 wins.
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah, 251 wins, won a World Series in 2009, was an ALCS MVP, and a Cy Young winner, also a 6-time All-Star.
He's got a couple other things I would give him credit for, but I don't want to mention on this podcast. But a nice guy, though, too, and I think that helps.
I believe he's also currently like a stud softball player in slow pitch softball player in New York. The last time I talked to him, he was just playing game. He was in a league just in Central Park. He would just show up. He was showing up and playing games in Central Park in New York and just crushing the ball.
I saw him at Rickwood, and he lost a ton of weight. He looks good, and he is still very active, as you mentioned. And I think, he would be a guy that would probably. And you know what, the East Coast New York contention certainly will. And all the teams he played for, he made them better.
Yeah.
So those writers have to think long and hard too. And the reason why I bring that up, Cleveland and Milwaukee, 2 places he was good at. That'll be an interesting scenario because now you have Cleveland has got to think about Vizquel as well. So I just think that it's going to be an interesting Hall of Fame voting process. Not to mention the veteran committee. Those 6 guys, I think it was 6. All I know is it's hard to say no to any of those guys that were on that list.
Going back to CC Sabathia, 2008, when he was traded at the trade deadline from Cleveland to Milwaukee. At the time, American League to National League was Milwaukee already in the National League by then. You look at trade deadline deals that work out above and beyond what a team's expectations were. And I mean, locally, you think back to when Will Clark was traded to the Cardinals, how good he was down the stretch. Think when Randy Johnson was traded to the Houston Astros down that stretch. CC Sabathia started 17 games for the Milwaukee Brewers in 2008. Claibs, he went.
I remember well.
11-2
good,
with a 1.65 ERA, 7 complete games, 3 of those shutouts. Whatever, I'm not going to go back and look what the Brewers gave up to Cleveland in that deal. I'm just going to say well worth it for that year to get that
No
run
doubt.
out of CC.
No doubt about it. He caught the Cardinals one night, man, and it was he was hard on the Cardinals one night. It was a home game. I don't remember the score, but I just remember I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna hit this guy tonight. I mean, he was really good, and a lot of those trade deadline deals that we see don't necessarily work out like you hope, but that one certainly did. It gave Milwaukee a chance. They only had one problem. I think I forgot who they lost to, but in any event, you can only pitch them once a week. So I mean, that's the challenge you get into.
I did find the names on here. I was already on Baseball Reference, so I just scrolled down. Here is who they gave up to get CC. Remember the great Major League career of Rob Brinson? How about
Nope.
Zach Jackson?
Nope.
Matt Laporta.
I remember Laporta.
He had a cup of coffee. Yeah. So that's one of those you look back on and you say, yeah, that was the right move to make. Zero regrets making that move.
No, not at all.
So yeah, that's a name that I would throw in there. You mentioned a few of the other ones, just kind of throwing out there. Who were your four again? You said Carlos Beltran, Ichiro,
Andrew Jones, and Billy Wagner.
Yeah, Andrew Jones. This is both for Andrew Jones and Billy Wagner. This is not their first time on the ballot.
No,
they have. Those are two guys that I feel like should already be on that list.
Yeah, I think that because they've been on it long enough now that I think people will realize. I mean, all you have to do is look. Andrew Jones was the best defender during his era, best center fielder during his era, and Billy Wagner, other than Randy Johnson, might have been the hardest throwing left-hander. And when he came out of the pen, man, it was a wrap.
Yeah.
So that's he was dominant. So that's why I would have those two on the list for sure.
So the other,
and you can make an argument about some of the other guys. We mentioned Vizquel, but if you look at that list, there's some other guys on that list that are certainly you can certainly consider. I'm not saying that they're locks.
No.
I mean,
Dustin
Mark Burley. Mark Burley's an interesting guy. A couple of no hitters. I'm looking at my list. Curtis Granderson, no. Felix Hernandez, no. Torrey Hunter, no. Adam Jones, close.
Really?
Ian Kinsler, nope. Russell Martin, nope. Brian McCann, nope. Dustin Pedroia, nope. Andy Pettit, there's a guy that might get some votes. He you know what? He might move in. He might move into that conversation. Hanley Ramirez, nope. Manny Ramirez been not caught up into so many different other activities, he'd be a Hall of Famer. This guy can play. He might be one of the best right-handed hitters that we've seen in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Fernando Rodney, nope. A-Rod, nope. Francisco Rodriguez, nope. Jimmy Rollins, consideration, but nope. CC, we talked about. Troy Tulowitzki couldn't stay healthy. Chase Utley will get some consideration. Vizquel, he's on my list. Billy Wagner, we talked about. David Wright couldn't stay healthy enough. And Ben Zobrist, a very multi-talented guy, but not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's happy to be mentioned. He'll take a screenshot of that, show his grandkids that he was once up for a vote for the Hall of Fame.
Good player, though. I mean, good player.
He got a guy that could play all over the field. He put 7 different positions.
He used to ride his bike to the ballpark when he lived in Chicago in uniform. He's a different cat, man.
Now, how do you get that uniform out of the state? I mean, who's taking it home with them?
He probably has one hanging up.
So you just leave that. Yeah, you just leave that there. And
I'm not sure if he did it every day, but I know he did it.
Yeah. So those votes are taking place. The Veterans Committee one that you mentioned, Claibs, we'll find out those at the winter meetings here in a few weeks.
Do you have that list in front of you?
The of the Veterans Committee, is that what it is?
I don't know what they call it. That's what I used to call it. It used to be old timers. They didn't like that term. Then they called it Veterans Committee. I don't know what they call it now, but everyone on that list I can make an argument for.
Ken Boyer is on that list, right?
Yes. Ken Boyer, Dave Parker, Dick Allen. I think Whitey Ford's on that list. Or no, Tommy John's on that list. I don't know. You can roll off the other ones.
So Claibs is the Classic Baseball Era Committee ballot.
Okay.
That's what they're going with now. Dick Allen, Ken Boyer, John Donaldson, Steve Garvey, Vic Harris, Tommy John, Dave Parker, and Luis Tiant.
Okay, I didn't see Vic Harris, and there's a couple people I didn't see. But for a 4 or 5 year period, Dave Parker was one of the most feared left-handed hitters in the game. and he had one of the best throwing arms you will ever see. Kenny Boyer should have been in well before now. The day they took Sano in, he should have been holding Ken Boyer's hand because Sano was a really good player, but Ken Boyer was an MVP. He was a world champion, and he was the captain of the Cardinals at that time. And he was a really good player, really good. He died at 51. He had cancer, but Ken Boyer was a hell of a player and should be in the Hall of Fame. Dick Allen, from fingertip to shoulder, might have been the strongest man I ever saw. Yeah, there's some balls he hit around baseball, and he swung a 42-ounce bat. He was as strong as anyone I'd ever seen. Tommy John, I mean, you just think of the name Tommy John, you didn't even know he was a pitcher because there's been more people talking about the surgery than talking about him as a pitcher, but he was a very good pitcher. Louis Tiant was on some really good Boston Red Sox teams. He had this very peculiar delivery, but he knew how to get people out. So it's going to be, I think that's tougher. Picking one of those guys. And Dave Parker's health, he's in ill health. Dick Allen died a couple of years ago. So they may lean towards someone who's still alive. And I know Vic Harris and those other guys we mentioned, they're gone. So, and Steve Garvey, I just don't think did enough. Yeah. The year he won the MVP over Lou Brock, that was like, you got to be kidding me. So it'll be an interesting debate.
He's one of the guys really on that list. And Louis Tiant just passed away last month.
Exactly.
October 8th last month. Garvey still involved with the game, still doing stuff with the Dodgers.
Well, he's an ambassador now. I saw him the last time we were out there. He ran for Senate this year. He got crushed running for Senate, U.S. Senate. But a good player, very good player. But here's the one thing about that list. It's a shame that a lot of these guys are no longer with us, where they could have had these votes, because they don't do this vote every year. And I think they ought to think about being more proactive about that. And the ones who are in consideration, like Dave Parker is in ill health. I mentioned Dick Allen, and, I just think that they ought to consider that, because I think the greatest crime, or one of the greatest crimes the Hall of Fame has ever endured, is not putting Buck O'Neil in when he was still alive. Mm-hmm. He went in posthumously, but, that's great for the family. Although Mike Shannon once said, Hall of Fames are not for the individual, they're for their family and friends. So
honor them, go back and see them, see how great they
Which,
were.
by the way, speaking of Hall of Fames, Missouri Sports Hall of Fame is this weekend. And, man, you talk about a class. Earl Austin Jr., Anthony Bonner, the Hummers, the St. Louis Hummers. There's a number of people on that list, man. It is a very, very impressive list of people that are going in. So congratulations to them, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. Jim Jackson. Hell, what am I talking about? Jim Jackson's at the top of the list. I figured this out the other day. Jim Jackson has seen more professional sporting events than anybody in town in the sports business. Engineer for the Cardinals, engineer for the Blues and the visiting team in the National Hockey League, engineer for St. Louis U, and has engineered various other sports around St. Louis over the course of his long career here in St. Louis. So he's seen more games, or let's put it this way, had to pay attention to more games than anybody else.
Yeah, that's you're in. I mean, how many years has he been doing it?
Gosh, he replaced Colin Jarrett with the Cardinals, and that's been 30 years at least.
So you're talking probably close to 10,000 games, maybe?
I think you're right. You think about all the Billiken games and the Blues games, he's got to be up there.
Just Cardinals alone, 150 times 30. Plus.
And Jim, I think Jim has missed like 2 weeks in the 20 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of times you have to pay attention to something.
No other real Cardinal news these past few weeks. We're seeing little signings here and there all around baseball, but no big news has come yet. Juan Soto kind of making his rounds, talking to all the teams. We will see if baseball will wait for that domino to fall before other signings happen.
I don't think they will.
If you're in the Juan Soto market right now and there's another guy you're looking at, you can afford him too. Unless you're the Rays. The Rays are the only ones that are, I guess, in the Juan Soto market right now.
The Rays?
The Rays, the Rays are said that they were in for for the.
Okay. So here's something here's something that I think everybody needs to take into account. I don't know if this free agent market is going to be as robust as everyone thinks for this reason. With the TV situation, the local TV situation in a state of flux, and that missed and lost income that's going to affect a lot of teams, I don't think teams will be inclined to go long term. Or if they do, they're going to defer a lot of that money on the back end because they just don't have the cash that they would expect to be having.
Yeah.
And it's just not the Cardinals. There's a lot of teams that are like scratching their head, which is going to inspire teams to perhaps take their broadcast in-house a little bit more. Now, there may not be as much money up front, but I think on the back end, you probably realize a little bit more that will be more helpful. So you may see some short-term deals, and I think you'll see some players who learned from last year. I don't want to wait as long until we get into spring training before I get a job. I want to have everything in place. And if you don't believe me, go ask Montgomery.
Right.
Go ask Blake Snell. Some of the guys who waited until the end, and you saw what it cost them.
And then their performance also took a hit last year too, which
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the way Jordan Montgomery pitched the past few years, and you look at what he did this past year. Sure, he should have been in shape. He should have been able to throw, but he wasn't as effective as he was in the postseason and the stretch run for the Rangers.
Yeah.
During the year. So
the thing with Montgomery, you could look at him and see that he was a guy that needed to be heavily monitored because he was not this physical stature of performance.
Right.
And you can do all the throwing on the side you want, but you have to get into that competitive environment. And I don't know what he did. Maybe he did. Maybe it just didn't work. Maybe he needed to see more live hitting. I don't know, but he learned a lesson. And I think you're going to see a lot of other guys that take note and say, I don't want to go through that.
Yeah. We will take a break, Claibs. We have a lot to get to on the show today, kind of going in reverse order of the way we usually kind of get to it. The top stories, haven't even touched on those yet, and we will when we come back right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar here on Claibs Online.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe. Mike Claiborne, Joe Roderick here with you. Claibs, we're going to say football to the end of the show today because the biggest thing that happened, the most noteworthy thing, I'm not going to call it the biggest thing, the most noteworthy thing that happened this weekend, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul down in Cowboy at AT&T Stadium, Cowboy Stadium down in Arlington. 60 million people fought the buffering to watch that fight, and in the end, I think it was what a lot of us expected it to be, as it was still cool to see Mike Tyson in a boxing ring in 2024.
I didn't see anything cool about it. I didn't.
You saw
a 58-year-old man getting in the ring with a guy who's 28. What are we proving here?
31 year, I think 27. Yeah.
Okay. What are we proving?
I think if you
we don't even consider Jake Paul legit. Okay.
Who do you need to see? Who do you need to see him fight?
He handpicks everyone he knows he can beat.
If he were to face Canelo, would you take him seriously?
He won't face Canelo because the weight difference is too vast. He stepped in at 228?
He was 227. Tyson was 228. Yeah, he was 227.
Right. So he'd have to cut a lot of weight to fight Canelo.
I mean, if another $40 million is there for it, that's what he walked away with this past weekend, $40 million.
Well, who's going to cut? Is Canelo going to gain weight, or is Jake Paul going to cut weight and find a middle ground?
I think you find him. What's Canelo fight at now?
It ain't 200. It ain't 200. I mean, I don't think Jake Paul wants to fight Canelo because now he's stepping in the ring with somebody who really knows what he's doing. and physically and is at the age where he can still do it. You know, this whole Jake Paul thing is turned out to be it's a sucker farce. You know, suckers pay attention to this because they know if Jake Paul stepped in the ring with a legitimate guy of a comparable weight, and you figure out what the weight is, and from what I understand, the contract stated that Mike Tyson couldn't do this, or that. He just had to take the money and take the beating. So how do we know how good Jake Paul is?
You don't. And I think some of the other guys that he has faced, and you saw them maybe take it a little less seriously than what Tyson did. And if you watch the videos of Tyson training prior to his health incident this past summer, I think you saw a much quicker Mike Tyson than what we saw on Friday. I don't know if the health issues had something to do with that or the knee brace that he had on had something to do with that.
We didn't even mention the age.
Right.
I think, you know what, and I made it my business. It's total bullshit, okay? And people keep buying into this whole farce, and I'm not one of them. And to sit here and say it was nice to see Mike Tyson in the ring, I mean, dude, he's 58 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I know he still commands respect on the street. I'm not getting in the ring with him. I'm not going to do anything to get him pissed off. But to think that this is really worthy, I mean, it was different when George Foreman still was at an age where while he was older, we knew what Big George was all about, but in this case with Tyson, with his health issues, you can have it.
I wonder, I think it's going to be a while before we see the next Jake Paul fight. Claibs WrestleMania is in Vegas in the middle of April. Jake's brother is already a signed WWE wrestler. I think that's where you see Jake Paul fight next. I think they're going to do something to get him and his brother involved in something in Las Vegas where they can make a whole lot of money for a lot of people.
And I think Jake Paul and his brother, who I was talking to somebody who said he and Floyd Mayweather had a little beef recently. Now, Floyd's too small to fight either one of them.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see both those guys have more fans who want to see their block knocked off than to actually take them serious as fighters.
Yeah. That's what
if I can handpick my guy and give him the rules what he can't do to me, I'm going to do it. And if you're paying me enough, I'm going to be on the other side of that as well. But that's not what I call competitive boxing. I want to see two guys that are reasonably matched, who have the same purpose of trying to defeat each other, and winner take all as far as the person's concerned. Now, you'll get obviously an appearance fee, but if the winner gets more money than the loser, this was the other way around.
Do you said that you didn't like seeing Tyson in there with a guy 31 years younger than him in that match?
Yeah.
Would you want to see Tyson again fight a guy?
I don't want to see Tyson fight anybody.
You don't want to if he's out there and you think it's a legit boxing match.
No.
You don't want to see Tyson fight.
I've seen the best of Mike Tyson. We don't have a senior division. Okay, we have weight divisions. We don't have age divisions. So I'm good. I don't ever have to see Mike Tyson fight again. Okay. Who, by the way, I was having this discussion with somebody recently. I don't even think Mike Tyson is one of the top 10 heavyweights of all time.
Who else is in your list?
I would go.
I don't need a full 10.
Top of my head. Lewis, Ali, Foreman, Norton, Frazier, Liston. Who else would I throw in there? Jimmy Ellis, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield. I put all those guys in front of Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Tyson might be the most ferocious guy, but when Mike Tyson had to step in against real talent, it didn't go well for him.
That was after, though, that he had to take several years off.
Ali took several years off, and he came back. He was okay.
When Tyson was on his run, what was it? What would have been his best
year? Tyson was younger.
Yeah.
But point being, when Tyson had to fight guys that were legit And I thought the way Lennox Lewis carved him up in Memphis, he should have stopped right then and there. And I think had Lennox Lewis been a bad person, they would have carried Mike Tyson out on a stretcher. So, the timing of people's careers changes, and I get that. But when if you're still reasonably competitive, and Mike still was, those fights, anything can happen. And the best example, when Raheem Rockman caught Lennox Lewis one night, and everybody's like, "Uh-oh," and then Lennox Lewis said, "Okay, this is how we're gonna play this, huh?" And he went back in there and I'll never forget, he gave Rockman a knot on his head. It was like a cartoon knot. I mean, he just pummeled him. So, and I'll tell you another guy that people don't talk about. His only problem was he ducked Lennox Lewis, and he shouldn't have, and that was Riddick Bowe. Riddick Bowe, when he wanted to fight and he was in shape, was as good as anyone who ever laced the gloves up. He had size, he had power, he had quickness, he had tenacity, but you just couldn't get him motivated. And he got fat off the money.
What do you think of the women's fight that happened before?
That was a better fight.
Yeah,
that was a better fight. That gash that woman had.
Oof.
I mean, you could almost see her brain.
I like the video of her seeing that gash for the first time when somebody held up their phone.
And I got news for you.
She kind of looked at it, was like, "Ooh, okay, that's what I look like, huh?"
I got news for you. There's a million guys that would have been lined up ready to take her out on a date that night.
It does, that's, I think if anything came from that night, it's the possibility of getting a third fight between those two after that, and hopefully another big purse too.
If there was one thing about this event, it was good to have boxing on the front page again. I know we have UFC and the other multiple ways of fight, but boxing used to be the king. And that's when people would show up. The other methods, I get it, but there's nothing like when two guys lace them up, man, same size, and they go at it. They have a longer shelf life. Although the guys today don't fight as much as they used to, but I'm still a fan of the sweet sport. And I don't like the way UFC. When Dana White, when one guy can control the entire industry, it's kind of like the way your guy did in wrestling. I got a problem with that. I have a problem with that. Because go ahead.
Oh, I was going to head to break. I thought you were.
By all means, do so.
All right. We are going to take a break, Claibs. We have not talked any football yet, and that is
what a weekend of football.
We are going to end the show.
How do we do on the picks this week?
I have to look that up. I usually wait and do that about Wednesday or Thursday of the following week. But you being on vacation, Claibs, it cost you.
That's all right. You know what? I think I should still be in the lead after this week because I know I had Georgia and I know I had Buffalo.
I think you were tied. Yeah, you were tied with Frank. I have to go look what Frank did on his.
I think I took San Diego's. I mean, did we have the Chargers on there too?
I don't think we did. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, I think we did.
We will. I'll look that up. We'll go to break, and when we come back, we'll go over that and all of the college and pro games that we saw this weekend right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe.
Let me get this straight. Gray Bar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Gray Bar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Gray Bar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe. A lot of football talk to take you home this afternoon. Claibs, our picks from this past week through 5 games on the schedule. Most of those being in the NFL. No, 4 games on there. Looking at last week was 5 games. So Tennessee, Georgia was the lone college game we put on there. Then I did have Ravens, Steelers, Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals, Chargers on the.
I think I had a clean sweep.
You went Georgia, No, you went Baltimore, Buffalo, and Chargers.
Oh,
You
okay.
yeah, you got the
I
Baltimore
went against Tom,
one.
man. I don't. I hope you don't hear about that.
So
Some 3-1.
Frank had Georgia, he had the Ravens, he had the Bills, he had the Bengals.
So he's 3-1.
So he went 3-1.
All right.
No, he had Bengals, so he went 2-2.
Oh, so I picked up the game on Frank.
So you did pick up a game on Frank. Howard Richards, he had Georgia. Also, he had Chiefs and Chargers, but he also picked the Ravens. I'm trying to look here if anybody picked the Steelers. Andy Hanselman, the only one that picked the Steelers this week to win. Let's start with that game. Let's start with the NFL and what we saw yesterday. In that you have been saying for weeks, Claibs, that you thought the Ravens were the best team in all of football, and now they've lost 2 very close games in recent weeks, losing to the Steelers again this past week. Lamar Jackson has only beaten the Steelers 1 time in his career.
So let me stop you right there. Let's get a timeout.
Okay.
You single out one guy in Lamar.
I'm just saying in the Lamar Jackson era. Okay.
Hold on.
In the Lamar Jackson era.
So the most proficient kicker in the history of the league misses 2 field goals yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It was a bad day for field goal kickers throughout the whole NFL.
We remember Lamar, but we don't talk about the kicker because if it wasn't for Lamar, they wouldn't have been in a position to kick a field goal.
Right.
So let's take I think that is the most unfair statement I hear people make about quarterbacks. Okay, because yesterday was a day of special teams, and you know how big I am on special teams. And if you don't believe me, go ask the Chicago Bears what happens when you don't make a block. Go ask Cincinnati what happens when you got a guy who has no confidence. Special teams are difference makers in the game, but we only talk about them when it doesn't work, and then we pin it on everybody else when it does. So yesterday was a classic example. How some teams, man, and again, Baltimore always has good special teams. As again, this guy's the best kicker in the history of the game, and it wasn't his day, and that's the reason why Baltimore came up short compared to Pittsburgh beating them.
Justin Tucker, I mean, like I said, it was a bad day yesterday for a lot of kickers all throughout. I mean, Bengals kicker last night, they had multiple chances.
Guys, Chicago, got one block.
Santos and that one. Reading reports after the game saying the Packers players were shocked that the Bears just kind of held still and were fine kicking it from there instead of trying to run one more play and get a little closer.
Here's why. Here's why. The further you are away, the trajectory is much lower. It's easier to block kicks there.
Yeah.
And I agree with what Packers said. When you get guys, if you notice now, you can't crash the center. So what you're doing is trying to overload a gap, and you're trying to get height. You can't vault guys. You can't use a guy to gain height. You have to be able to just stick a hand up there, and that's what they're able to do. And the whole method of special teams is really changing right in front of us as far as the approach is concerned. And I can guarantee there's going to be a few more teams that's going to lose some games this year because they didn't have good special teams. So think about how Kansas City really should have 2 losses on their schedule. Because remember Denver,
almost more than that too.
Well, I'm just talking about missed field goals late in the game. So it's a bigger issue. And I think it's great for the game because you can't take anything for granted. And I give Cincinnati a lot of credit, man. They battled to climb back in that game.
Looking at Justin,
they got tired at the end, and that's what cost them.
Justin Tucker, probably a Hall of Famer when his career is all said and done, has already missed 6 field goals this year. He missed 6 field goals back in 2022. The only other year that he missed more than 6, he missed 7 in his rookie season in 2015. So Justin Tucker, they're only 11 games or in week 11 right now of the season, and he's already at that many misses.
I'll tell you this right now, he might miss one more for the rest of the year.
The big story from that, I mean, and just looking at this season as a whole, because the Steelers seem to be a team that we are just waiting for the wheels to fall off. And the Steelers keep going out there and winning week after week. They started the season with Justin Fields. I mean, when you look at the way they started the season, Russell Wilson was terrible last year in Denver. He was not good last year in Denver at all. And then you get Justin Fields from the Bears, who the Bears just kind of said, you know what? Hey, give us whatever you want for him. We're moving on to Caleb Williams. We don't need him anymore. Justin Fields goes out there, wins a few games to start the year for the Steelers to put them in a position where Russell Wilson was healthy enough to start, and Russell Wilson has taken it from there. It goes to show the coaching job that Mike Tomlin does year in and year out with the Steelers, and just how good of a coach he is to put these guys in situations where they've been successful all year.
They demand focus. He didn't have the best group of players. I mean, I think his offensive line is still a little shaky. He didn't have really, Pickens has been a very good receiver who has a chance to be very good. Picking up Mike Williams has been good. The tight end they haven't got much out of. They get it done. And you know what? They out tough everybody. They don't get pushed around. Minkah Fitzpatrick is one of the best defensive backs in the game. He's one of the best tacklers in the game. And, good tackling is contagious, man. Between you watch him and Watt and Hayward, some of those other guys, once they get a hand on you, you're going down. Mm-hmm. And I just think they're just so fundamentally sound is one of the reasons why they've been so consistent.
The tackling just over the entire NFL and college.
I can think of one college game if you want to talk about that. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you, and we're going to jump to Missouri here for a minute. Has this season been a failure?
Yes.
Okay.
I think just even when you look at some of the wins that they had, the way they struggled at home against Vanderbilt, the way they struggled at home against Auburn, the way just overall, the way they struggled at home against Oklahoma, who's having a terrible season. And to go on the road right now and be 0-3 in SEC games on the road, that right there, I mean, you look at these teams, that's unacceptable to be that unprepared. If you're a top 10 team to start the year and you are that unprepared to go on the road in the SEC.
Well, that tells you, though, a couple of things. You can't trust early season rankings, okay? I said it early in the year, not buying into it. Second thing is, we've been told you got the number one receiver in the country, right? Everybody in Columbia loves Brady Cook. He's our guy. He's got the heart of, you got a lot of guys up front who are allegedly really good, and you thought your strong suit was going to be your defense. Mm-hmm. And they thought, many thought that this was Mizzou's year to get into the tournament and really do some damage. Coming off the win against Ohio State, they played short last year. So now, as you just pointed out, all of the things that have gone wrong with this program this year, I'd have to say it's between failure and disappointment. It's definitely a disappointment. And I don't care if you win 10 games or not, because you'd have to win a bowl game, which who knows who's going to show up at that. You think Luther's going to play in a bowl game this year?
No.
I mean, and there's going to be some
You'll
other
get
guys.
Brady Cook will play in a bowl game because he's trying to get
be on the Battlehawks.
I was going to say he's trying to get drafted, because if he's not drafted, he'll be on the battle. He'll be.
I don't see Brady Cook getting drafted. I don't see Brady Cook getting drafted. Just like I didn't see the running back last year getting drafted. These are very nice college football players, but Brady Cook don't have the arm to play in the next level.
Their Battlehawks opening right now at QB.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
AJ McCarron was released this past weekend, so it's open.
So maybe they know something we don't know.
Him and Cody Schrader there at the Battlehawks. Yep.
So point
Tigers
being,
East.
I think this has been a very disappointing season for Missouri, and I don't know what they have coming back that's going to make them better than what we thought they were going to be this year.
I saw today
we know it's going to be a new quarterback.
Yeah, they signed a five-star lineman.
Spare me with this star shit, okay? I'm sick of that too.
I'm just reading reports. I haven't seen the kid play a snap, okay? I'm just reading the reports.
Everybody telling me about the star rankings, which we know when you're playing in the SEC don't mean jack, okay? Because they all have star rated guys. And I think we, as people in St. Louis and the state of Missouri, we better get off this star ranking thing, because all it's telling us is either these guys are that good or our coaching is that bad. Pick it. You can't be both.
I want to look at the standings right now. I want to look at the selection committee. We will find out tomorrow night what the new top, I guess their emphasis is on the top 14 and the first 2 out of what the top 12 looks like. But you saw Georgia beat Tennessee.
Tennessee, yep.
So does that take Tennessee completely out of it now?
You know what? If BYU hadn't gotten knocked off, I'd say yes. But BYU, you had some teams that are now scrambling.
Right.
Okay. You didn't have the teams behind them that really looked overwhelming. So I don't know how much movement we're going to have. But as you mentioned, man, they just saying we just want to be part of the 14 for now. We'll take our chances.
I don't think that loss to that BYU's loss, I don't think it hurt them that much. I don't think it mattered in the long run because
who did BYU lose to?
They lost to Kansas.
Okay. All right. I
But
think that's a huge
what I'm
loss.
saying, but as far as it goes, the Big 12 champion will get into the tournament. The Big 12 champion.
Who's the Big 12 champion?
Right. That's the thing. Right now, it's still undecided, and that game also was undecided. If Colorado won out, it would have been BYU and Colorado in the Big 12 championship game, and the winner of that game would have gotten the first round bye. So that's why I'm saying that loss doesn't matter because they could still get that first round bye.
Here's what I would say that, and you make a very valid point. Man, you lost to Kansas in football.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. You lost to Kansas in football. Kansas is barely in Division I as far as I'm concerned when it comes to football. Now, they've gotten better, but you lost to Kansas.
You know who Kansas plays this week in Lawrence?
I'm scared to ask.
Your boy Dion in Colorado.
Colorado? That'll be an interesting score.
Kansas has a chance.
They have
to
a
do
chance
it 2
to
weeks in a row.
fate. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll be rubbing their hands together.
I know.
By the way, I'm glad you brought Dion's name up. The people at Fox, and I love Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. I think Joel Klatt is a very good, I think there are more good college analysts than there are pro analysts. I think Joel Klatt does a really nice job. But man, he and Gus Johnson, why didn't you just give Travis Hunter the trophy right there on the field at halftime, the Heisman Trophy? I mean, it was overkill to the point where I'm like, enough already. But it's amazing how little we hear about Colorado and their record right now because they're winning.
Really, I think we hear about them a ton. I think we hear about them a lot.
Not as much as when they lost early, and certainly last year. There's a lot of haters out there, man. A lot of haters, and I give Dion credit for standing his ground with that one columnist. No, we ain't talking to you, man. And I wish more guys. And Grant, I'm in the business, okay? But when you cross that line and it becomes personal, or you have a vendetta, why would I talk to you? I wouldn't talk to him. And like the Joel Embiid situation. He got fined $1 million. If I'm a 76er, that's probably a guy I don't talk to. And according to some, I don't know whether you heard about the fact that the Celtics did not want, I can't think of his name. He's with ESPN. I don't want to call him a big dummy, but you know what I'm talking about.
Brian Windhorst?
No.
Oh.
Bigger than that. Played in the league.
Kendrick Perkins?
Yes.
Okay.
They wanted him nowhere near the ceremonies on opening night. Players don't want him around because he takes too many free shots at people. And here's the one thing: as a former player, as an analyst, the first thing that should run through your mind is, I'm a former player, so I know what this situation should look like or what it looked like to me. Which should tell you have to take into account injury, miscommunication. There are a lot of things that go into play other than, when a play doesn't go well. And when these guys just start shooting from the hip they were perfect, I got a problem with that. And Kendrick Perkins leads the charge on that for a guy who averaged 5 points a game. Now, that's 5 more than me. It's 5 more than me. But point being, I think there's a time and place for that. And I think we're seeing too many guys who assume that this is the only way they can keep a job.
Claibs, look, going back to the college football rankings again tomorrow night, we will find out who is currently in the 12-team tournament and who is left out. Boise losing this past weekend, that does shake up a lot because they were going to be that group of 5 team that was going to represent as long as they stayed undefeated. But them losing right now opens the door for Washington State, opens the door for Army if Army's able to beat Notre Dame this weekend, and also opens the door for a Tulane who blew out Navy this past week and should also be moving up into the up into the chart. So you're gonna have Boise, Washington State, Army, and Tulane all in the top 20 going into this weekend. And it's kind of, I mean, none of those teams play each other, but it's kind of their own little tournament within.
Good. That's just where they should be.
And of who's going to keep winning.
That's
whoever
just where
wins
they
these
should
final
be.
few weeks is going to work their way into that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just stay on the back end of this whole thing, because if you start to put them in a category with the final 12, it's not going to look good. Okay. I don't care how hard they play. It's not going to look good if they get in this tournament with these other 11 teams or 12 teams. Not going to look good.
Big game coming up this weekend. Indiana at Ohio State. Indiana,
I'm looking forward
10-0.
to that. This will be a nice little calling card for both schools. Ohio State is obviously ranked extremely high. Some would question their schedule. So them playing Indiana, who anybody
Ohio
can
State
question.
schedule?
Yeah. When you think about what they've done, they're a good team. I'm not going to take that away from them. But when you look at what Indiana's done, and Indiana is like the darling of the Big Ten now, and rightfully so. They played everyone tough on their schedule. But this would be a good test for them. It was much like when Penn State had to play Ohio State. Everybody, well, this is our year to get Ohio State. Yep, sure was. So I'm looking for, this is the one game that I might lock in on.
And it's the early one too. Fox has really created some waves this year with the big noon kickoff and some of the games that they have put at that 11 a.m. Central time for this season. I think a lot of Ohio State's games have been at that time. And I know a Fox executive last week came out and said, hey, listen, like this gives you good football games all day long.
True.
You're not just having to wait for that SEC game at 2:30 and then whatever primetime game is there at night on ESPN. You are getting good football throughout the entire day when you're kicking off with this big noon kickoff.
Here's the one question I have for you, though. How is it that Purdue still finds themselves on TV?
Because they're playing good teams. They had no other choice.
This is bad, man. They get stomped every week, man. And I feel bad for them. But, if you're a network and you say, wait a minute, can't Purdue play Northwestern or somebody like that? It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
Hey, speaking of primetime games, Claibs, tonight it's the Battle of Texas in Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Cowboys, once again, are in a primetime game. I'm sure the NFL would have loved to flex out of this one and move this to Sunday at around noon.
I forgot. Who did Dallas announce as their starting quarterback?
Is it Cooper Rush tonight?
Oh, boy.
It's got to be, right?
I would think so.
For some reason, nobody in the world wants Trey Lance to be their quarterback.
And you wonder why guys get excited about people like that in a workout. He hasn't looked good since his pre-draft workout.
Yeah.
He can do a lot of things physically, but it just didn't translate. And one of the things I'm seeing with a lot of these quarterbacks, there is you see some guys with a big arm where they can throw it down the field, but then you have guys like who have touch on the ball where you can run under it, or you have guys that have to make contortions with their body. And I'll give you a guy who I'm thinking about. And here's a question for you to ask Mike Martz and Jim Thomas. How many times did you ever have to see a receiver lay out and make a spectacular catch from something Kurt Warner threw?
Mm-hmm. It was right there on him.
Think about it. I was having this discussion recently, and I said to somebody, I said, you know what? I watched virtually every game he played. I never saw a guy have to be spectacular or acrobatic in order to make a catch from Kurt Warner. He always threw it where he was supposed to be, and the receiver was always there when he was supposed to be.
Claibs, Cooper Rush, your starting quarterback for the Cowboys tonight. Did you see his line last week when the Cowboys played the Eagles?
No, I didn't.
He was 13 for 23 for 45 yards.
That's very hard to do. That's very, very hard to do. I'm serious. That's almost impossible.
Coming up in 2 weeks,
he'd be better off running down and handing it to a receiver, let alone trying to throw it to him. He might get more yardage.
The Giants announced today that they are benching Daniel Jones for Tommy DeVito, which means that we will get a whole lot of. I mean, Tommy DeVito's agent. Tommy DeVito's agent is happier than Tommy DeVito to hear that, because that means now he can pop back up with his little hats and show up on the sidelines to things. So Claibs in 2 weeks.
So do you clean house? Do you clean house with the Giants again? And the reason why I asked the question is, watching them in Hard Knocks this year, I had a bad feeling about them in Hard Knocks when I was watching that, and to see this thing just disintegrate, but I mean, how many more times can New York teams do this? The Jets are no better. I mean, this is almost like a every other year scenario we're dealing with. And I got news for you. The Jacksonville Jaguars are about to fall in that category too, because I don't see how Doug Peterson survives.
The GM for the Giants, Joe Sheen or
Right.
Schoen.
Right.
This
From
is
Buffalo.
a man right. Yeah. This is a guy right here who, before the season started, he had the idea to extend Daniel Jones and keep him as the quarterback, and let Shaquan Barkley walk. I mean,
that was again beginning of the end.
Right.
Now
the fact that he still has a job.
In fairness, running backs obviously don't carry the same value financially as quarterbacks do. And I can understand him saying, let's try and challenge. What his mistake was, he didn't spread the money out. He threw it all into one guy who he didn't have to do. He didn't have to do it with.
No.
Because he'd not proven himself to be that guy. He could have given him a shorter term deal, less money, or not even address it, and taking his chances in free agency. And spread that money around a little bit better.
Who are you most surprised in the NFL right now of all the coaches that is still employed here today? We're sitting here, it's Monday afternoon.
Doesn't make a difference now.
I'm just saying, Doug Peterson with Jacksonville.
So you bring in an interim guy to do what?
I mean, right now you have the interim guy in New Orleans who seems to be seems to have reignited that team.
You know what? They were saying the same thing about Antonio Pierce.
Right.
Name me a guy who ended up going from interim to having that same job 3 years later.
I'm sure there's a name out there.
I'll give you one.
Is there?
Bud Carson with the New York Jets. You know how you don't even know who Bud Carson is. That's how long ago it is. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It gives you the opportunity to start your coaching search, though. It does let you get out there.
The coach you want is going to be there when the season's over. Okay.
If that coach
you want is going to be there.
You think Bill Belichick could still coach a winning football team in 2025?
It depends on what you let Bill Belichick do. Is he in charge of personnel as well? Because he may go the Parcells route. If you want me to cook the meal, I got to buy the groceries.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have a guy who says, you give me the players and I'll coach them up for you? And there's two different trains of thought on that. So if you don't have a guy sitting at the table saying, I want this and that, and this is what I want this guy to look like to the scouts and to the GM, then maybe you have a better chance compared to them saying, these are the guys the analytics department says we should be drafting. Because when you get those guys involved, now you got a whole new ballgame to deal with.
And that's where I kind of look at letting a coach go right now. There's a name. How about a guy
who? What? The guy you want, who he's already either working somewhere else, or you're gonna bring again a guy in off the street to pick up a pile of crap that that nobody can win with.
Mike Vrabel's out there.
So you're going to bring Vrabel in now?
I'm just saying you have the ability to talk to him now and to be able to go with
you
him
can
as soon
talk
as
to
the
him.
season's over.
Listen, you can talk to him now. I'm not saying you don't talk to him. I'm just saying you might as well leave the other guy where he's at because your season's over with.
Mhm.
So to bring in another coach or to bring in an interim guy who knows he's probably not going to be part of the staff of Mike Vrabel or whoever the next head coach is going to be, unless he has a deal with the owner that says, hey, listen, I'll take this on as long as I have a job next year. And you know what they say? Thank you for your service. We'll move on.
Vrabel, by the way, currently with the Cleveland Browns. He is a coaching and personnel consultant with the Cleveland Browns.
Smart move on his part.
This year. So that's
and
what,
that hasn't necessarily worked out very well in Cleveland either.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, we're sitting here talking about names of guys and possible coaches for next year. I really would wonder how many coaches or how many potential coaches sit around still, and we talk about this every year, and wait to see if that Kansas City job opens up and see if they have an opportunity at landing that. So I think that's a lot of people waiting to maybe jump onto a coaching job, thinking maybe they'll like me, maybe they'll look at me if Andy Reid decides to step down again.
Well, I think what that comes down to is you may want the job, but do they want you?
Exactly.
So, and I'm not sure if the future head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs is currently coaching on that team. So if you want to look outside the organization, that's a huge transition, considering you're getting older. You're capped out in some areas. You may have to restructure the whole thing. They may have to get out of line quicker than you think.
Right.
Okay, because they haven't been able to find a legitimate receiver. Kelsey's 35. Your offensive line is getting very long in the tooth. You got Chris Jones up front. You have some undersized linebackers. Your corners are okay. Your safety is okay. You have no real running game. Kareem Hunt was just a guy on the street. Now, you can tell me about Pacheco and some of the other guys who are hurt, but remember, those guys are taken either late in the draft or free agents. So it's not like you're building a wealth of talent that can step right in. And God help you if something happens to Mahomes. So your issue with Kansas City is before anybody goes anywhere, let's beef up this offensive line. Let's make ourselves better there. And then let's go get another receiver. And then we'll figure the rest of it out. So, but I don't know if a guy's going to, I don't know if guys can sit around and punch the voodoo pins into Andy Reid thinking he's going to walk away.
Claibs, final few seconds here of the show. We saw the Chiefs lose their first game of the season yesterday. You saw the Ravens lose again yesterday. Very clear cut. Lions are the best team in the NFC, possibly the NFL right now. Who is your best team right now in the AFC?
Man, you know what? I'm going to still say it's Baltimore.
Okay.
As much as I think Pittsburgh is deserving of that title, I just think Baltimore has more ways to win. I think they have more ways to win. Other than that, I think they're neck and neck. And I think yesterday, had special teams not been a letdown for Baltimore, we'd still be talking about them being in first place with the belt on.
For me, I'm looking forward right now to the game coming up in Week 15, I believe it is. Bills Lions, Week 15.
Where are they playing?
They are playing that in Detroit.
Considering the Lions don't play a lot of games outdoors, I'm going to take the Lions on that one if they're healthy.
I think that kind of evens it up with it being indoors. You just let Josh Allen do whatever he wants in that game. Yeah. But again, we got a few weeks before we get there. But that's the one. Bills and Lions right there. Those are right now my top 1 and 2 teams.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
You think the Bills are the best team in the AFC?
6 in a row right now. It's them or the Steelers, and I'm taking the Bills right now for quarterback play. I think Josh Allen a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, so I'm taking the Bills in that one.
So again, here we go with options. Buffalo's offensive line is really good, and they didn't even have Amani Toomer yesterday. I mean, not Amani Toomer, the kid from Alabama, wide receiver. They didn't even have him yesterday. Effective.
Yeah.
They have better personnel right now up front. Defensively, I think you can do some things against them. But you know what? Again, I think now we're at a stage of the season where you have to look at each game on who's healthy, nothing else. Because you lose one or two guys that you counting on at this stage of the season, it's over. You don't have anybody to replace them.
Quick thing. So coming up on Thursday or on Wednesday this week, Mike Martz, Jim Thomas with another edition of Talking Football. Very interested to hear Mike Martz's thoughts from this past weekend. Justin Jefferson this past weekend broke a record held by Torrey Holt, most receiving yards through the first 6 seasons of an NFL career. Torrey Holt, of course, passed Randy Moss on that in his career. Justin Jefferson passes that yesterday, so we'll get Mike Martz's thoughts on Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings.
So let me just say this: it's a very nice accomplishment, but you know why Justin Jefferson was able to do it? And if Torrey Holt, if Marshall Faulk wasn't on the team, that'd be one less option. So maybe Torrey would have even more yards.
Where Isaac Bruce?
Yeah, exactly. Who can you name a running back as effective as Marshall Faulk who plays for the Minnesota Vikings? Okay. Can you name another receiver?
I couldn't name another wide receiver. I know there are tight ends, Hawkinson, but I couldn't name another wideout that the Vikings have had these past 6 years. No.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about records, let's talk about the whole package of who he plays with. That's why when you think about Jerry Rice and you think about what he was able to do, he had John Taylor playing with him. And John Taylor was a hell of a player. He had some other good players playing with him. And he was still able to outdo everyone else. Mm-hmm. So for Justin Jefferson, when you're the only option, man, I would expect you to have a pretty good year.
Yeah. All right, Claibs, that's going to wrap up our show for today. As I mentioned, Wednesday this week, talking football with Mike Martz and Jim Thomas.
What time does that start?
That'll start at about 11:15 on Wednesday.
Ah, man, I got a funeral to go to on Wednesday. But I want to sit in on that show one day.
11:15 on Wednesday, and
I want to sit in on that.
On YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts after that. And that's every week, too. I think we're going Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving, Claibs, since there's so many games on Thursday and Friday. So
circle that on my calendar. I want to sit in with them.
So yeah,
it is one of my favorite things to listen to.
We will set that up for you coming up here in the next few weeks. Until then, he is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. We'll talk to you next time right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on Claibs Online.